SHODIPO from Nigeria is a senior developer advocate, software engineer, program manager, and a teacher who contributes to lots of open source projects. This talk from SHODIPO is Developer Experience, also known as DX. Developer experience is similar to how you see and understand the user experience, but the difference is DX is focused strictly on the developers who consume certain API services, SDKs, or other services owned by a company and organization. This talk today will explore developer experience, matters in a company, providing a technical service, what makes a great developer experience team, and the relationship between building a great developer experience flow in a company with the public. I can't wait to hear this because this is getting more and more important. Companies are realizing that community is important, and for the community to build and thrive, not only does it need to be inclusive, it needs to have great developer experience, great DX. Over to you.
Hi everyone. Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me on board this conference. I'm excited to be here. Yes. I think so. I think I followed a couple of talks and I followed a couple of them, and it's been fun. The last one was amazing. I saw a couple of them, and it's been great. So I'm happy to be here. So thanks for the organizers for having me on board. Yeah. So at this conference, I'm going to be talking about technical principles for developer experience rather. A little bit about me. My name is SHODIPO AYOMIDE. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, all the way across the other side of the world in Africa. So I work with Stack Overflow, and I'm also a GitHub star, cloud media developer expert, and a community evangelist. So you can find me on Twitter at developer.io and also on GitHub. So let's get into the good stuff. Okay, this talk should be fun. I'm really excited about this talk, so I hope you're excited too. So what exactly is developer experience? This is the big question. This is the core of the talk. What exactly is DX, developer experience? Let's get right into this. So developer experience is similar to how you know and understand things like user experience, because when you think about like product design, you think about UI, user interface, and you think about UX, user experience. So it's similar to how you think about UX, which is user experience. But the difference is DX, which is developer experience, is strictly focused on developers, on how they consume your API service, your SDK, or any other service that you own as a company. This was most important when you talk about DX, developer experience. You're going to see me using the DX experience, DX abbreviation throughout my talk. So DX means developer experience. So we help developers feel great. We help developers feel awesome. We help them feel good about their work. We just basically help them move forward from that point of reading your documentation to actually implementing your API, SDK, whichever service you offer in their project, if it's open source. Or if it's like something that you want people to like reuse, you want other developers to reuse, you need to have developer experience. You need to have a developer experience person on your team. That's overly too important. So we help developers feel great and feel awesome about their work. So the popular question here is, who is a developer advocate and what does developer advocates do? So I'm going to give 4 criteria here. So number 1 is a developer advocate is technically advanced. So notwithstanding the departments which a developer advocate is operating in, a developer advocate is always an engineer, notwithstanding the departments the developer advocate is in. So it can be marketing departments, it can be engineering, it can be under developer relations umbrella, it can be anywhere. Notwithstanding the department, developer advocacy is an engineering role. So number 1 is you have to be technically advanced. Number 2, you have to know how to build communities. So developer advocacy is a mixture of being being technically advanced and you working with global communities and online communities at this point. So secondly, as I mentioned, you must be a community builder. Number 3, expert communicator of technicalities. So you must be able to communicate technicalities, like really complicated technicalities in simplicity, so that the audience, the people who are going to utilize this this company you work for, the product, the services the company like you work for offers, the people are going to use their developers. They need to understand how it works. That's too important. And number 4, you need to know how to sell software to developers, because salespeople wouldn't know how to sell software to developers because it's going to be hard based on the current conception that a lot of developers we know today that we don't really trust salespeople, as there's been a past track record of selling softwares or just selling tech, even though like it doesn't do what they said it does. So as a developer advocate, you must know how to sell software. You must not sell software to developers specifically. So that's why you must be technically advanced. Only a technically advanced person can sell like another software to a developer, because you have to explain in depthly how it works and how the implementation process is like. So the other developer is going to say, okay, this is what you're using. So let's talk a bit about user experience. So user experience again, which is UX, is how general users. Now, general users exactly, they use your platform and their experience from loading up the first screen of your web page, that's the home page, to let's probably signing up to their dashboard, to resetting passwords, to account settings. All of these processes is which is what is called user experience. Now, developer experience in this case now is the flow where developers are trying to implement or configure your dev SDK API or even package if it's open source. So the process, the flow by which you're trying to implement, this is the experience. How is the experience like when I'm getting your package installed in my project? Is it easy? I get it installed. How do I get to use it? What exactly are the parameters? What are the endpoints available? All of this, is it documented properly? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. And this is why a developer experience is needed in every company that basically offers this kind of service to developers. Because remember, I said when I was giving the criteria over here, you have to know how to sell software to developers. And if you're selling software to developers, there must be a documentation they would have to follow. So here is the difference in between UX and DX, which is developer experience and user experience. So developer experience is, sorry, yeah. So developer experience is developer focused, as I said earlier. Then user experience is general user experience focused, including developers, including everyone. That's what UX is. Developer experience is, let's talk about value and time. So value is I can reach my goals with this API and it has everything I need, every single thing I need, and even more. It has everything. That like it provides even more. Let's talk about time. Time is I can reach my goal using this specific API in less time than using like another API that documentation is terrible. A lot of things are not defined, things are missing, things like that. So basically, these are the two important things that developer experience people focus on. Number one, how to provide enough value in whatever developer service you are offering to the people, to developers. Then the time it takes for them to go from implementation to actually configuring, rather documentation to implementation. So productivity of developers, basically in this case, is measured in DX, basically how fast they move, as I said before, from documentation to implementation. The first step is, for example, when we see an open source project on npm.js, we check it out. We basically read what this package covers, what this npm package covers. Then read, okay, you can do this, you can do this, are the parameters, this are where you have to find this, these are what you have to import, you have to use the CDN, you have to use this. We read all of these processes before we implement, because on a regular basis, like sometimes I know I might want to work fast sometimes, so I just like, hey, this is the package, like boom, copy, install, and then like I think I can figure this out myself. Just try doing something yourself. Well, many times we always go to documentation to avoid mishaps where we get to have some things missing and we get to have like serious problems in our project. So we always go to the documentation. So productivity for developers, how you will measure it as a company is when your developers, people who use your service, can go from the documentation you have prepared for them to implementation. How fast they move between these two processes is the developer experience. And how do you get this data? By speaking to the people. And I'm going to talk more about that later in this talk. Let's talk a bit more about documentation. So no docs simply means I built this, I don't care. Figure it out, do it yourself, I hate stress. So when you write zero documentation, this is exactly what you mean. That there is no documentation. I built this tool for you. It's totally for you. But then I don't really care if you understand or you don't understand. I hate stress. Just don't stress me. Figure it out yourself. That's basically what I'm saying when I don't write any documentation in the projects that I'm trying to push to developers, because literally they don't know how to use it, because like they didn't write the code, I wrote the code. I have to explain how to use the project. But many times we always tend to assume people already know, developers already know what to do. And that's one of the things that we should stop doing. Even when it comes to article writing, now we always assume that the person reading the article, automatically they already have like certain prerequisites installed, or they have certain things done already. So we always assume that assumption, because the thing is, so the internet is a forever thing. It's an internet thing. Anyone has access to it. In 10 years time, 20 years time, they're all going to have access to data on the internet. And people who are newbies, people who are senior, people who are mid-level, they're all going to have access to your article. Then think about if someone from a junior developer sees your article and is like, hey, what exactly am I seeing? I don't understand this. So The person could have easily understood what you wrote if you started from scratch, if you gave the required prerequisites to even get the project started, notwithstanding the level of the project, level of the article you're writing. These things are important when you don't assume that your audience already has a certain level of expertise already. We shouldn't do that. The most important part of writing good documentation is structure. Everything should be tabled properly, super easy to find. And as we can see here, so when it comes to basically writing good documentation, everything must be tabled properly. You must label categories. You must label parts of it. So if you want to do a repository, this is what you do. You want to install, this is what you do. If you want to start, this is what you do. When you're done with this, go here. It has to follow along properly. You can't tell me, okay, the first thing you would do is run npm run build. Oh no, what? I have not even cloned the project. Okay, let's say you clone the project, like, okay, run npm start. I have not even installed dependencies. It has to follow like an order. It has to follow a structure. This is what's important. You define every single thing you can do with whatever project you're working on. You're going to define all of that and explain properly. Because remember, developer experience is measured how a developer can move from reading the documentation to actually implementing your project. This is how it's being measured. This is how it's being measured. So if it takes them, let's say, let's do an estimation of 5 minutes to go to reading your documentation and actually implementation. That's a problem. That's a problem. For senior developers, that will be a very big problem. At least I should be able to glance through your documentation. So because of the level of expertise that senior engineers have been doing this thing for, they can easily just glance through your documentation and automatically they know what to do almost instantly because they've done this process over and over and over again. So if a senior developer is taking him 5 minutes to go to your documentation and know what to do next, there's a problem. There's a problem. They should literally just glance through and like, okay, this. Okay, done. Let's get started. Like just like that. But if it takes a junior developer 5 minutes, that's totally fine because they are just trying to catch up. So the time in between documentation and implementation is how developer experience is being measured. And this is what's really important. Let's go next. Everyone loves a well-structured README. Every single person loves a well-structured README. When your README is well-structured, definitely everyone loves it. So this is basically what happens to every engineer in any company when there's no documentation. So you build a package and the company wants to utilize the package you built, but there is no documentation. Then their manager asks them, hey, how's that feature coming along? They're like, it's totally fine. All good. It's going well. It's going amazing. I'm doing a great job, but not knowing they're sitting in fire just because of you, that you didn't write a single documentation. This is basically what I've been in this scenario before, and trust me, and I'm pretty sure that some of us here have been in this scenario, and we both know and we all know this situation is not great. It's definitely not great. It's definitely not great. So yeah, everyone loves the well structured README, as I said earlier. So your README should be well structured. And okay, that's a duplicate. That's a problem. Okay, I see. Let's move forward. So developers need to understand how your API service works, what endpoints are available, as I said before, and how to implement them. All of these processes, you're going to define every single endpoint, what they offer, and what exactly you can do with them, how you can implement them, all of these things. You're also going to even provide use cases, things like this. All these are great developer experience because it helps developers. Again, I keep on saying this thing. This is the key. It helps developers move from basically that documentation to implementation, and even to getting their API keys and all of that from your website. Like we need to get developers from that point of documentation to implementation as fast as possible. If we can reduce that time from 5 minutes to 2 minutes, that's something big. Because then see, we are providing value and we are at the same time giving that value in less time. This is what's really important. No developer wants to be slow. They want to overcome their tasks in less time. So our service provides value, but then we do it in such a long period of time. That's a very big problem because why? We have the value, but then we have a lot of time we're spending doing your project. This is a problem. This is a really big problem. Let me give an example of years ago, WordPress was really slow. When you click on a blog post, you wait probably like 5 to 10 years, then it loads up. Just kidding. So no, so you just probably wait for like on a slow internet, you wait for probably like 1 minute or 2 minutes, then it loads up. But right now, because of the adoption of new technologies like React and GraphQL, it's super fast. Think about React, think about Gatsby, think about Nux, think about Gridsom. All of these new frameworks coming out from JavaScript that are working around building static pages on top of React. That's amazing. That's amazing. I get to click a blog post and at the twinkle of an eye, boom, it's here. Speed is what's most important. Every company aims to provide value, but then the problem is how fast do you provide that value? that value is important. It's always important, definitely important. And if that value is worth the time, that's also something to consider, because this is another angle to exactly what I'm saying. If the value you're providing is worth the time spent, that's different. There are some tools you can build because of the volume of data it's trying to fetch. Because the volume is going to have to take time. There's nothing you can do about that case. There's nothing you can do about that. And it's going to have to take all the time it has to take. But when the data comes back, it's definitely worth the wait. It's definitely not worth the wait. Not that you're going to get like this chunk of data when it gets back like this small thing. It took me all this time. Now I'm not going to do this. So you should provide value. And if you can provide a value in less time, please do. Provide the value in less time. It's definitely going to be worth it. Definitely going to be worth it. Let's talk about tools for helping with documentation. First, I'm going to mention Docusaurus by Facebook. So Docusaurus is for JavaScript developers who want to document your JavaScript project. You can use Docusaurus. You can use documentation JS, also JavaScript, Go Code for Go, Slate for Ruby, and Codex2 for PHP. And there are others for different languages that you can use. You just have to go on Google and just like get this out there. Documentation is not just for the end user. This is what we need to understand. We need it also because why? We are humans and we get to forget things too. There are cases where I've encountered similar problems constantly, and at the end I'm like, okay, I think I've had this problem before. I'm pretty sure I've had this problem before, but then I cannot recall how I solved this problem. This is a problem. This is why we need to document. This is why we need to document our code. I've been in some cases where so funny story, right? Let's go through this. So I wrote an article about the problem I had. Then I uploaded it to my blog, and for some reason, so some time back, I lost all the content I've written. I've read everything. So a couple of years later, I had the same problem again, and I went on Google searching for like the error that I had. And funny story, yeah, my article popped up, and guess what? It was in another person's blog post, written by me. All my names are still there. It was like a copy and paste thing. I'm like, wait, what? So this is why we honestly need to write articles. We can forget things too. We're humans. It's not everything we can write in a notepad or something. There are things that we're going to need, like to be on the internet, that when we need them, we can just like go over there and see how we basically solve them. So documentation are not just for end users, they're also for us too. Let's talk about commit messages and how this improves developer experience. Commit messages are also part of your documentation also. Documenting your code, if we talk about documenting your code, it's not just writing a README file or building out the documentation in either Gatsby documentation, documentation JS, the source, any of this. Commit messages is also a part of documenting your code. So this helps also in improving the flow of onboarding new developers to the team. So imagine this, a developer comes to your company and begins to see something like this. It says, so we're revamping admin subscription pages. Here, this is what we're doing. Here, this is what we're doing. Think about if we had something like, fix this. I just did that. Weird fix. I'm thinking about a solution right now. Those are really weird. Commit messages are really weird. But then it gets people disordered. They're gonna have to click the commit message and read your code and see what exactly you changed. And remember, this is an open source project, so you have to actually commit your message properly so you can know what exactly you're committing. And when you're onboarding new developers, they know exactly what you're doing. They don't have to click and take out time to read your code or anything like that. Let's talk more about developer experience feedback. So as I said before, one of the most important part here is feedback. When you're calculating the time spent in between documentation, getting API keys, getting API tokens, and implementation as a developer, you have to send out something probably like a developer survey to your developer audience and get them to fill in the survey and ask them this question so you can know how to basically improve their experience while using your product. So the funniest thing is many companies don't like to do this because you're gonna get tons of bad feedback. And I think personally, I'm pretty excited to get bad feedback. I'm excited about it. It means at least we're doing something good. At least we're getting some feedback. There are many companies out there, they send out feedback. You get like 2 people or 1 person filling out their feedback. But then you send out the feedback and you're getting like tons of bad requests. It means people are actually using your product and they want you to improve on your experience. So it's a good thing. So it can be hurtful sometimes, but then it helps you improve your product. This was most important, improvement of the product and retention of customers. And how you retain customers is by basically working on their recommendations, working on what they complain about, working on all of these tickets of the company. Don't just leave things at your backlog. Always go to your backlog, then like work on these things that are out there. Then get back to the community saying, hey, we've worked on this project and here is a preview. I would like you to take a look and tell us how it works. Any feedback is good feedback. So I'm done with my talk. So just a tool. So this is something I'm working on. It's called Image Hype, the CO. It helps you fetch colors from basically images. So as you can see, once you have to fetch colors from image as fast as possible. So this is something I'm working on. It's a small product that I'm terrible with colors, but then this is really helping me get better with colors. So I can fetch colors from images by URL or upload them locally. So you can check out Image Hype SEO. And that's it. So thank you so much for coming to this talk. I'm really excited to be here. And trusting you learned so much from this talk, and I'm looking forward to the questions. You can follow me on Twitter at developer.ayo. That's developer.ayo, AYO. Also on GitHub, the same URL. If you want to check out my open source projects and some of my documentations. So yeah, thank you.
SHODIPO, what a fantastic session. Thank you very much for being part of this year's conference once again. It was an honor to have you be part of our lineup. I'm sure everybody watching at home is going to be joining me in giving you a huge around the world round of applause. SHODIPO will be linking up with Eddie any moment now for his Q&A session. Please do head on over to GatherTown and join in the fun there, where you can get your questions answered by the man himself. Please do keep those posts coming in on social media using the hashtag CityJS2021, as well as your comments rolling in wherever you are watching along at home. Once again, SHODIPO, thank you very much for that amazing talk.
Thank you so much for that awesome talk. I mean, being in developer experience, DevRel, it's just, I just love hearing other people's opinions and experiences and so on. So that's, yeah, really, really awesome. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it. I got distracted by other conversations going on, and I know I missed some awesome gems. So thank you so much for that. And I'm looking in the chat. We haven't got any questions yet. So everyone watching, do write in the chat any questions. I think is the best way to kind of dig deeper into certain areas. If I know you've concluded already, but if you were to do one last conclusion, just to kind of remind people, what would your conclusion be? Like, what takeaways would you like people to walk away with?
Yeah, so the one thing is I would say is think about your customers, think about the people using your projects while you're building them. Don't just build projects and put it out there and say, hey, if you like, use it. If you like, don't. I don't really care. I would say really people want to use the tools you're building. You are important to the community. You build amazing tools. You are a good engineer. So people love what you're doing, and you should actually like give them the benefit of getting to use your project by documenting them, by writing great code, by avoiding over engineering, by avoiding repetitions, and just basically think about the people using your code, using your project while you're building them. And that's what's most important when you're working, like when you're trying to build a great developer experience while developers use your project. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for that. And I got a couple of questions of my own while we're waiting for the audience to ask questions. So
Sure.
let's start. I've got two questions. I'm going to think which one first. Let's start off with the bad one first. Not the bad question, but the kind of, you'll see. You'll see. So what is an example of something not to do? Like something that you've seen or heard and you thought, oh, don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do. Like, have you got any horror stories that you could share?
Yeah. Don't, number one. Okay, I think is it two? Okay, I think it's actually two major ones. So number one is don't assume that the people you're writing for know what you're talking about, because the internet is, I'm gonna say the internet is open source. The internet is literally open source, because literally like it's open source. Like we don't get to see your code, but we get to see a preview of your blog, of like all of these things. So people are gonna go up there, junior developers are gonna go up there, and they're gonna see you assuming that they have npm installed, as little as npm is. You're gonna assume they have Node, so you're gonna assume they know how to install like dependencies, things like that. So I'm not saying you should always write exactly how to do all these things in your article. The best way is to link to an already existing article that says this already. This is the best way. So if you don't like, so you're gonna have a line in on that prerequisite. It's called, if you don't have npm installed or Node installed or like this prerequisite installed, check out this article to understand how to get this mode, then return back to this article. So once they're done with that, they come back to your article. So community, I would say, is like supporting each other. That's where we support each other. And you linking to your friend's blog post or a random person's blog post because they have great content is not a bad thing. I believe it's a really great thing because why? We're supporting each other. And I think this is what we should do. Don't assume as a technical writer, as a developer, get a developer experienced person, that the person, when you're writing documentation, that the public already has certain things installed. Don't do that. That's really terrible. And it gets people like junior developers are going to feel like, I don't understand this. They're going to feel really bad. They're going to feel like they're not cut out for this thing. You're going to feel really terrible. And that's because of you. So you shouldn't even do that. And the second thing is, let's not over engineer things. Let's really cool it down because I've been seeing a ton of this because I've been doing a kind of like building of tools recently. So I've been using a ton of projects that outside my regular stack these days. So let's not over engineer. Let's really just like do what we have to do and leave the extra stuffs out. Let's just leave them out. And so like it honestly helps a lot of people in like implement your project easily rather than adding things that are not really needed. So don't over engineer. Yeah.
Love that. Really, really great advice. Absolutely love that. And we do have some questions. So we'll come back to my second question in a bit if we get time. Let's go to the audience questions because these questions are much better than mine. So from Paula, I hope I pronounced that right. What do you suggest to a junior developer starting their first role?
Sorry, could you come up with that again?
Sure. What do you suggest to a junior starting their first developer role?
Is it like developer role?
They've said developer role, but you can focus it on, there is a question later on that is very, very similar. Maybe we can combine these from Samantha, which is, I'm new to a DX team as a junior. Would you have any recommendations, reading resources that would help?
Okay, so the first one, so you got a new job as a developer, that's great. One thing I would recommend is don't think that you're a terrible person, that you don't know anything. Trust me, you're a junior developer, and don't try to overly do or don't feel pressured because a lot of times junior developers tend to feel pressured that they have to like build a whole project in 2 days. No, it doesn't work that way. Even senior developers don't do that. So junior developers don't feel pressure. Don't feel pressure to do a ton in your new company. Don't feel too pressured. But yeah, I think you should want to at least since because you're a junior developer, you should want to like learn. You should want to like be open to speaking with your teammates, asking a bunch of questions. They're gonna say, hey, I think you're asking a lot of questions, and I like it. Yeah, because they have to like, because why? You're someone they would want to retain in the company and one day transition into like a senior developer role. So ask a lot of questions, anything you don't know, anything that looks like something you don't understand. And even though I asked you a question and you've forgotten, like if like, okay, let me give you a scenario. Let's say, for example, you asked me a question and later on you've forgotten the question, you've forgotten the answer to the question I answered, and now you have that same question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. I can say, hey, I know I asked this question before, I've forgotten the answer. Could you help? Could you like tell me what you wrote again? Then next time you copy and paste it somewhere. You can make a mistake once, but making it twice will be a problem. Notwithstanding, you're a junior developer and like companies at the same time, a lot of companies also want you to like really put in an effort and a lot of effort. So once like you like get answers to this thing, document it, go to your notes, copy and paste it there. That's important too. Then the second question about developer experience, there are a ton of articles to read online. There are a ton of videos to watch. I think let me see. There are a ton of resources. Like there are too many that I can't remember. Like
what would you recommend them searching for? Maybe like if they were to search, or they could probably reach out to you on Twitter. I mean, everyone do go and follow SHODIPO. Hopefully I pronounced your name right.
Yeah, it's that good.
Okay, cool.
On Twitter.
Yeah, but yeah, go follow on Twitter and yeah, then do reach out, ask questions if you can't find something. Yeah. But I'm sure you're also sharing lots of resources yourself, like not just your resources, but resources that you come across that you think are great, from videos to blog posts and so forth. So by following you on socials, I think yeah, they'll get made aware. I know it's hard on the spot to come up with the URL is
too many.
XXX. Yeah, there's a lot.
I know some right now, but like I don't know which to pick. It's too many.
Sure. Well, we can share some on socials afterwards because I know I enjoy reading those as well. So yeah, thank you very much for those questions. And I actually met Samantha earlier today and yesterday, and she's doing lots of awesome, cool, geeky stuff, which is great. Okay, so a question from David: how do you measure the time from documentation to implementation?
So you measure the time. So how do I measure the time? Number one, what we measure. So there are a lot of ways to measure this. One way to measure this is so this is not a privacy breach. If anyone is asking before I go into it, it's not a privacy breach. So you can calculate the time spent. This is even open like it's like something you can get on Google Analytics. Something you can even get there rather than even putting an independent tool. So you can calculate the time frame spent on like your documentation page and how fast they switch to another page. And you can also, so using passive event listeners, so you can also calculate the time frame where like how long it takes to takes them to scroll from that point to another point of the page. You can calculate all of these things. So this is how you make your independent calculation as a company. You can do all of that as a company. Then the second way is you sending out a survey. So once you send out a survey, say, hey, how long does it take you to go through our documentation? Is it simple? What would you recommend? You can just, don't say you don't want to put them on the spot. You can just put like a 5-star or like an angry face, happy face or sad face or something. Then you just get to pick how you're feeling. And you just get to judge how you get to improve based on your survey responses. So if you get like, or if let's say you survey monkey, you get like a 2.5, that's bad. If you get like 5.5, that's still bad actually. You have to be getting at least 7.5, 7.8, 8 to 10, because those are great numbers. So if you're not up those numbers, you have to really tax yourself to really do great. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I know like 5 is something, is good, is amazing, but I think we have to do better as a community, as companies trying to provide services. I always recommend 7.5 upwards. And if you still have that, there's still ways you can improve and all of that. So yeah, send out the survey monkey link. Just don't put people on the spot. You can just put emojis or stickers that they can just pick. You can put like a crying emoji or like a happy emoji. They're gonna pick. Then you can get to the point where it's just gonna like, do you have any other additions? Then you get to write how they're feeling there. So we don't get to put users on the spot, because like we're not paying them to write surveys. We are not like putting a gun to their head or anything like that. It's like it's 100% their opinions to do what they do. So we don't want to put anyone on the spot. Yeah.
I love that. That's really good. And I have a lead-on question. We do have some more questions in the chat, but I kind of have a follow-on question from that question and your answer.
Mm-hmm.
What about measuring those numbers over time, so you can see if you guess you're getting better or worse? Do you think that's important, and how would you go about it?
Yeah, so great question. So those numbers are really important. One major thing that we have to do as a company or even as a person, and you have to learn to keep data. You have to learn to collate data. You have to learn all of this. It's super important. For example, if we talk about, I sent out a survey monkey link about a project I'm working on. Sorry. People get to feel it. They get to like sending reactions, this put in additional comments and things like that. So I do that for Q1. Let's say I do it in the middle of Q1. Let's say I do it in February, middle of Q1. Then people get to fill it in. Then I keep that data. Let's say I get a 5.0. Let's say I get a 5.0. Then I get to keep that somewhere. Then Q2 comes and say, hey, I think this is another time we need to do another one. So I send it out again in the middle of Q2. I send it out again. And let's say I get like a 5.1. I would not call that a lot of growth. I would call that my minimal progress. It's just one. It's nothing much. But then that means there's a big problem somewhere. There's a big problem somewhere. So Q3, I'm gonna anticipate all of this. I'm gonna have to start reaching out to users, scheduling meetings to get to understand the perspective on why exactly we're not collecting their data. So we're gonna be like asking random of our users who like, hey, what do you feel about this feature? What do you feel about documentation? What do you feel about this? So yeah, we're basically going to calculate and put together data across quarters. It's always best to send out these surveys per quarter, so you can have like enough users who have like took out the time to really experience the product. Even though there are like 5 users who have really experienced and used the product and give quality feedback, even though they are terrible feedback, it's good. Any feedback is good feedback because it helps you improve your product. So yeah, we just do it per quarter, then put those numbers together every quarter and see, and just measure it. You can just like convert that into a graph. You can convert that into a graph and see how far basically how far the product is going. Is growing based on like what people are saying. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And then in addition to the previous question that David asked, Paula's also asked, can you give an example of the time between junior and senior?
Okay, so in between moving as a junior developer to a senior developer, it takes time. It takes no one should think that it takes you. So okay, I think so. Funny joke. From 0 to hero, from junior to senior in 12 hours, in 5 hours, in 6 hours, in 24 hours is impossible. It's not magic. Okay, let's go bigger. from junior to senior in 7 days. It is impossible. It's impossible. Let's try again. 0 from junior to senior in 1 month. It's impossible. Because it's not just knowing how to write codes that makes you a great developer. There are tons of things. You can't build like an amazing soft skill in 1 month. It's impossible. Don't try, because many times we try to overdo things. Like I feel like, so it takes a long time. It takes a year. You can hardly see someone who is a senior developer in, like, let's say 4 months. Even 4 months is still hard. You're still going to be going up to like mid-level roles. It takes time. There's a bunch of skills it takes to become a senior developer, no matter how hardworking you are or how many hours you work per day. There's like, it takes time, and I would not want to give it a time frame, because how everyone learns is really different. You can do it under 2 years, you can do it under 3 years, you can do it under 1 year. But then for junior to senior, I will always say, so always like minimum, if like, okay, because like if you want to be a developer, you have to at least have like a zeal to always keep learning on a daily basis. So maximum 1 full year, 365 days of you actually writing code for 365 days. You're definitely going to be senior after that, and you can then apply for senior roles. But then some people who learn a bit slower, because everyone is different. You know, like anyone, you're unique, I'm unique, everyone is unique. So I can probably do it in 2 years. So I wouldn't rush. I would do it in 2 years. I wouldn't try to meet up with someone who did it in 1 year. If you do that, you're trying to like measure yourself with someone else, and you're gonna break down. I can assure you. And when you break down, you're gonna have to probably go to the hospital. Then that's 1 month of out of 365 days. You're gonna spend more than 2 years. So work at your pace, and just work, keep working at your pace, keep working, keep buying courses, keep studying every day, write code every day. Apart from Sunday, but we're gonna write code on Sunday like me, write code on Sunday. You're gonna write code on Sunday like me, write code on Saturday. But then work at your pace, and don't let anyone like try to pressurize you that like you're slow or something. Work at your pace, and in due time, you're definitely gonna get there. But it takes time. It's not an overnight thing.
I like what you're saying, that, everyone is different, and time factor isn't important. People want to kind of rush and get that title, but you can get the title, but you might not kind of have that experience that you
Yeah.
need, and you're going to put more stress on yourself, like you said, and make yourself ill. And then you kind of end up, rather than going forward, you might end up going backwards. You've got to go take time off. So yeah, really, really well said. I mean, I've seen people, it take 10 years, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they've had like a solid foundation. And I
Mhm.
think when they did get to that position, they were able to make some really amazing improvements for the team and project and so forth, because there's nothing worse than rushing ahead and doing
Yeah.
a terrible job and so forth. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. That's really good. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so this is quite interesting. This is an interesting question, actually. What's the balance between internal DX projects and requests from your users, aka developers, to solve their problems and improve their DX? I like
This
that.
is a great question. This is actually really
Yeah.
good. And I think I should even add it to this, my talk. I think I should, because there are actually roles called like internal developer experience. Yeah, there are things like that actually. But then only big organizations can tend to afford these kind of roles. Sorry. So we have people who work internally as developer experience, and we have people who work externally, like that's community facing. So we call them company facing developer experience people, and we also have like developer facing like developer experience people. So company facing. So internally, as I said before I go into this is for only big organizations and not small startups. It's really important. Now, for small startups, like you don't have like ton of files. There are companies, for example, when I joined Stack, I think about 2 months or a month and a half. Yeah, a month and a half onboarding process. And startups, I've worked with startups before. My onboarding process is like a week or less than a week. Wait, not up to a week. Like 2 days, 3 days, and I'm up and running. But when it comes like a huge company like this, there are tons of things to read. There are tons of things to do. There are tons of things to go over. There are tons of things to sell because like it's a huge company. There are a lot of things to go over. So the people who go over all of these things, yes, the manager gets to pitching, the like basically team members get to pitching a couple of documents, but making sure that all of the documents and communications are working internally are super important. And on every project and every feature that the design and developer team need to release, you have to be on those projects so you can help them measure the developer experience and what like basically your contributions to those features. You need to be in those meetings scheduled by the design department, scheduled by the developer department, and pitching what you can do, like how the experience can be better. So that's basically what internal developer experience people Do they help improve the developer experience internally before it actually goes outside? In small scale startups, they just hire one DX person that basically just handles both things. But in like bigger companies, these are two different things. One person, for example, I think so at Google, they call it an internal developer advocate. So it's internal developer advocate. You don't talk outside. You don't see them going to talks all the time. They are within the company trying to communicate like within the company because like they have tons of staffs, and like there are a lot of things to go over. Now, we'll talk about public facing. That's like the one I spoke about in my talk, where you get to relate with the community, where you get to like write like documentation, where you get to like create videos, build use cases, things like that. And yeah, so that's the difference. So if you don't understand this better, so I could send I can also send you a couple of articles that you can take a look at. That's going to basically differentiate between both of them. You can send me on a DM on Twitter at developer.io, and I'll get that to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Great question, David. Really, really great question. And SHODIPO, thank you so much for your talk and your time for the Q&A. That's great. Everyone, don't forget to go follow SHODIPO on social so you can reach out, ask your questions, and see the awesome posts that's being shared. And everyone, also don't forget to go check out the sponsors booth. Go chat to everybody. I've been chatting to various people around the booths, and it's awesome to connect with these great people and great companies and see what they're up to. Thank you again so much for your talk, SHODIPO, and I will see you on socials.
Yeah, thanks for having me around.